Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. Uh, Everybody, it's great to be with you. It's really an honor to be here on stage here at Transformation World, especially in our 6th year of sponsorship. I've seen the event grow so much over the years, and it's really, really exciting to see the success. For those that I don't know, my name's Garrett Keats, and I have the privilege of leading IBM's SAP practice. This is all the work that we do, implementing SAP for our clients, helping them transform on it, and then supporting those applications as well. And before we get into the story, I just do want to give a special thanks to SNP for all that you do to bring this event together, bring this ecosystem together. I think it's a really powerful event for the benefit of our clients. And then thank you all for coming here to learn more about this story and to learn from Adobe about their success. Thank you, Jens. Thank you. To start things off, I want to take us all to a moment that gives every CFO, every CIO, every business transformation leader anxiety. And that is the night before go live. And you've likely spent months, maybe even years. You've invested millions of dollars to prepare yourself to launch the future of your business and to put in a new digital core, a new digital platform to run it. The data has to be right. The systems have to be talking to each other seamlessly. The business has to be able to transact the next day. You have to be able to report the results soon after. And this was the moment that Adobe was facing just 8 weeks ago. Just 8 weeks ago. And to kind of illustrate the magnitude of that a little bit, this is an environment that has over $22 billion of annual turnover in it. It processes over 1 million orders a day. At its peak during that day, it's over 100,000 an hour. We're talking about over 30 orders a second going through that environment, and these are complex orders as well. Now, Adobe did not face this situation in a moment of chaos. They actually faced this moment in a moment of, in a state of confidence. And they did that because they had laid out a vision about how they were going to execute this project. They had driven execution discipline into their team. They had aligned their leaders to support them in this journey, and they had brought the business along with them. And in fact, they executed that moment with precision. They closed their month-end books 8 days later with not a hiccup. Yeah. They processed their quarter 5 weeks later with no issues. It's an incredible achievement, and it's not because of luck. It's because of it's because of the design of the execution and the commitment to excellence that their leadership and this leadership has bestowed upon that project. And so I'm excited today to talk further about this program, share more details with it, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have the two leaders from Adobe with me who are going to share more of their personal journey about it. Okay? Now, the first person I want to introduce, you already know him a little bit, but he is an executive who leads from the front. And he uses his passion to generate a following of those behind him on a program to be able to deliver extraordinary results. And that is Tim Garipa. Tim, do you want to maybe introduce yourself a little bit further to the group here?
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. My name's Tim Garipa. I lead the Transformation and Innovation Office for Adobe Technology. which sounds really fancy, but essentially it really comprises of about 5 or 6 different areas. I own organization strategy, so all of our operating model and how we function, thinking about the future. I own culture and engagement, the here and now, how do we make Adobe a great place to work. I own people transformation, which is, I mentioned earlier at the keynote how important people was to thinking about continuous transformation. So part of people transformation is looking at skills and thinking out 5 years. How do we need to create a workforce of the future to be ready when that future comes? I own technology transformation, which includes S4HANA, some other technology programs we're doing. I own the Innovation Hub, which includes both incubation, but also how we embed innovation and AI into the business, including all of our customer zero efforts. I own release control, so how we release in a concerted manner. And then I also have our general transformation management, which looks at value and things along those lines. So it's a pretty exciting place to be, always looking at the next thing, figuring out how to bring the next piece of value to Adobe. And it all started actually with my role at Adobe with the S4HANA program. Before Adobe, I spent 20 years in consulting. So, really excited to make that change into industry, and we'll share more about kind of our success as we've gone through.
Now, we also have the business leader for the program with us, and that's Maddie Gatto. And I know Maddie to be a person that operates with a steady hand and uses fact in her decision making to her benefit. Maddie, do you want to introduce yourself further to the group?
I'll start with correcting you then. You did say we had operational excellence, which I appreciate, but there was a lot of prayers involved too, as we did cut over weekend. And I also, my partner in crime, Tim, I wanted to say you didn't give me the memo on the SNP blue jacket.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. I thought we were closer than that. So Maddie Gatto, my background is public accounting, CPA, ran accounting departments, operational departments, and honestly, being a controller at a Fortune 500 company or taking a company public on the New York Stock Exchange, my sweet spot really became the translation layer between finance and IT. So Adobe brought me in when the S4 program was a little sideways and partner with Tim. And I was excited to bring some of my end-to-end operational expertise, some technology acumen, which is a little bit unique for an accountant. But they didn't quite tell me they were cutting our timeline by 40%.
So to maybe tell the story a little bit further, I think we're gonna go through 3 areas. We're gonna talk a little bit about the program and the vision and the setup. We're gonna talk a little bit more about the execution, give you some of those details, and then of course, because it's an evolving company that always transforms, what's next, maybe on the horizon. So Tim, maybe to set this up a little bit, of course, I assume most people know Adobe's great products. You've got content creation and document management, experience management, et cetera. But maybe Tim, share a little bit about what are some of the strategic initiatives going on at Adobe right now?
Yeah, so obviously people know Adobe for some of our core software. Adobe PDF is one of the most used technologies out there, 200 billion opens of PDF every single year. That's a pretty substantial number, and that's just obviously one piece of our suite. What we're really looking at is we've done a lot of really amazing things at the product level, at the consumer-facing level. Now we have to improve how we operate the core of our company. And that started with our finance transformation. It's continuing on as we look at procurement, looking at things like expanding shared services, and really doubling down in the AI space. Right? I talked earlier with Jens around how do we actually look at AI and operationalize AI. That is where we are doubling down, not just AI embedded in our products, but also how we reflect that in our back office procedures, how we really operationalize AI to save time, to create more strategic opportunities for our people, and make sure we're getting more quality and higher velocity to drive transformations. Transformations will not end at Adobe, right? We're doing a lot of those back office items. We're also continuing to figure out how we embed transformation to then bring that back out to the business. How do we look at customer zero? How do we actually drive enhancements to our products so that way finance and IT aren't just seen as cost centers, but are actually enabling more revenue and driving additional sales for our overall business. So lots of exciting things coming. If you come to our session tomorrow, I might share with you a new product that we're going to be releasing. It's technically already softly out. You just don't know about it yet. But we're going to publicly announce it coming up in a couple of months.
I know
I'll share
about
more
it.
tomorrow.
I know about it, by the way.
Yes.
And Maddie, maybe in the 1 to 2 years that you've now been with Adobe, is there anything that surprised you about Adobe as you stepped into the company?
Sure. I would say the first two things coming in the door was data and on-prem. So data, complexity, size, volume. 27 years in ECC, and we're bogged down with data. I mean, I left the 90s with a few fashion faux pas myself, trying to get Adobe to leave the 90s to get into the future state of S4, leaving ECC behind, this legacy data. So that's something that surprised me, just the volume. And then when we got to on-prem, I'm used to doing implementations in the cloud, but the thousands and thousands and thousands of lines of custom code, because of our 27 years in ECC, are really holding us back to that next step to be able to enable some of the capabilities in S4. So cloud is the next project.
Excellent, excellent. Now, Tim, as you were working with the leadership team on shaping up this program and defining for the vision of what it needed to be, can you share kind of more about what that aspiration or ambition was?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Maddie and I both came a little bit after the start of the program, but because things were going off the rails, we had a chance to redefine a little bit. And when we looked at where we want our outcomes, it was really focused on setting a strong foundation for us to be able to scale the business, right? And I think one of the things that's important there is when the program started, there was these huge aspirations for complete end-to-end transformation.
Yes.
And achieving full transformation is really difficult, especially if you don't have a strong foundation in place. So we were very strategic around where do we want to be transformational and where do we want to simply set the right foundation to build transformational capabilities on top of it. There's a few things that we knew we needed to do. Garrick already mentioned just the sheer number of transactions that go through our system. It is massive. It's so massive that we could not handle in ECC 606 compliance because of the volume of transactions that we have. We were doing 606 compliance outside of the system manually. So that was one of our big goals. How do we take away some of those manual steps that were required because of the lack of capability and start to build that into the system to free up time, but also improve our confidence in the delivery, right? We also were really looking at how do we improve power. We know that Adobe is growing. We see, that's great for us.
Yeah,
right? Adobe's
absolutely.
growing. But we also need to make sure we have the system that can scale with it. We were really reaching the capacity of where we could go with ECC. So having a system that allows us to scale and build on new capabilities in the future was really the key asset that we wanted to get as an outcome.
And Maddie, were there any, representing the CFO and the finance organization, were there any capabilities that you wanted to make sure really got into, you know, this release, this wave?
Yeah, I've got to be a little honest here. Transformation was not our strong suit at the onset. We did simplify our chart of accounts. Tim mentioned the migration to the RIR platform module that allowed us to get 606 revenue reporting, one-stop shopping. And then we also did a definition build and more robustly completed our security roles. But other than that, we really focused on what Tim was mentioning, the layer cake, you know, that foundational structure that would enable us to transform in the future. I think that also supported our big bang cutover. We didn't have to go in phases because we weren't really being as transformational. So timeline really forced, I think, us to look at the scope of the project and focus on the quality of the build to lay that foundation.
Tim, was there maybe any other elements that kind of led you into choosing that hybrid approach and wanting to execute a hybrid migration on top of maybe what Maddie just shared there?
Yeah, I mean, Adobe loves our data. So going in with a greenfield was just not possible from a business perspective.
And culturally.
It just wasn't going to be accepted. But we also knew a complete lift and shift was not the right thing for where we needed to be as a company. And so that led us into the hybrid, Bluefield approach. And let me tell you, that was a lot of really tough conversations. How much data do we actually bring over? Yeah. There was groups that wanted 10 years of data because we have 3 reports a year that need 10 years of data, right? So, let's get 10 years of data, okay?
Why don't you go with the PCR?
PTR.
PTR,
right?
okay.
Preference, tradition. That was the tradition, right? We had all the data. It was there at our fingertips, and we were paying so much money in storing and maintaining that data.
Yeah.
So we were able to go through several conversations and say, how do we actually make this work? We decided on a 3+1 time slice, which was a little bit more manageable to where we were. Still, a lot of companies is maybe on the higher end, but we were able to get the right buy-in from leaders for that and be able to stitch data in the back for those 3 reports that require 10 years of data.
Now, on that data front, Maddie, you had to do a lot of leadership with your business to get it ready and to prepare it. Do you want to talk about that process and that effort?
I feel like you throw me all the fall down questions. We were not good at data, okay? So we missed an opportunity as the business to do some data cleansing before we went through migration. And dirty data, actually volumes of data too, is just such an albatross for a project. It really led to problems that we found in migration as well as testing. And as a leader, having failed tests, I don't want to waste time to see if that was a data issue versus I'm assuming it's technology. So lessons learned, and we had iterative testing cycles, so we got better, but lessons learned, honestly, doing that data cleansing and that business pre-work before we get to the migration cycles, I think really was an opportunity that we can use going forward.
Excellent, excellent. Now, if we think about the challenge of this project, you've obviously talked a lot about data, the magnitude, the size of the environment. Of course, that had an implication from a data preparation, data readiness perspective. It also caused some, challenges maybe on the migration window and making sure that could be executed. And as I shared earlier, right, we're talking about a million orders a day. So time is money. Time is money in the Adobe world. And I know there was no tolerance to impact your month and impact your quarter. A very, very engaged CFO from Adobe in this project, making sure it was executed flawlessly. But Tim, do you want to maybe talk at all about what were some of the steps that were taken and to get the team prepared to minimize that downtime window and make sure that it was going to be able to be executed on plan?
Yeah.
Can I start with this one?
Sure, you can start, and then I'll add.
Because once again, I'm going to take the fall down questions. Dress rehearsal, right? Coming into dress rehearsal, I don't think it went well. And at the end of dress rehearsal, I never thought I'd be saying, I want another round of data migration to give me confidence for cutover. But learning that a failed plan can really give us the drivers to success. We knew what we needed to focus on. We added some controls, we added some monitoring, and we added, I think, a few checkpoints in that cutover weekend that gave us more confidence that we had a calculated risk for cutover. I want to throw that to you, but that was kind of from the business standpoint. Another data migration cycle, I never would have thought I would ask for that.
That's true. If we had left data migrate or dress rehearsal where it was, we would have been a no-go for our go live. But one of the things that's so important as leaders is how do we really assess the risk that exists Because if there's no risk, we're spending a lot of money and a lot of time putting in a system, right? And so if we look at our success story where we did go live, we had no P1s, we were able to really drive things through fruition, it was the right calculated risk.
That's right.
But let me kind of get back to your first question. The business really wanted us to keep downtime to 48 hours. That was their first request. Y'all, 48 hours. It's like, it's basically impossible. The amount of data that we had, part of it was not impacting the number of orders that were coming in. There's no perfect time. We do dozens and dozens and dozens of releases for our products every single year. So there's constantly things that are coming up. We have Adobe Summit and we have Adobe Max that drives additional business through our system that we couldn't impact. And so there was a lot of ask to really figure out how do we minimize that downtime. Now, we started setting expectations pretty early of what that downtime window would look like. We called it a restricted or heightened change awareness.
That was our third go around on that
there
name.
was limited amounts of changes that we allowed to go into ECC as we were preparing for go live. But through all of our different data migrations and mock conversions, including just rehearsal, we started setting the expectation of about 80 downtime hours that would be expected as we went through our cutover weekend. Right?
Let me pause there. He already mentioned our CFO was very involved, and he was military, ex-military. So imagine going from 48 to 80 hours.
Yes, that was a hard conversation.
Hard conversation.
But in his defense, he's willing to have hard conversations.
Absolutely.
That is true.
And if you come with the right data and you come with the right evidence and you really show this is what we're trying to do, and it gives confidence in level of quality, it is a acceptable conversation, right? And so we started setting expectations with the business really early. But what we also did is we had double, triple checks at almost every single stage of our cutover process. So SNP mobilized a center here with shirts, and they had banners, and we had IBM on site in our Adobe Mission Control, which was in San Jose, in Lehigh, in Dublin, in Noida, and in Bangalore. And we made sure that our cutover plan was meticulously planned to the 15-minute increment. So that way, every single step could be followed, and we didn't lose a minute. It's that type of focus that allowed us to get through cutover, and we actually shaved about 10–15% of our downtime window off, which was great because we did see some things and issues that came out during cutover. Things that we were able to fix before we actually turned on S4 and transactions started going through the system.
That's true.
So that time savings, thanks to meticulous execution, the work from SNP, the work from IBM, the Adobe team, all working together literally around the clock, allowed us to shave time off, get defects fixed before we turned the system on, and in the end, result in the quietest go live that we've ever seen at Adobe.
And the hours saved, Tom, thank you for being patient with us from SNP on our 15-minute increments, but you guys were the ones that saved those hours that allowed us as a business to fix some of the defects we found.
That's right.
So you successfully got through that hurdle. You've been live for about 8 weeks now. Is there any new capabilities that you're kind of most excited about, Maddie, as you think about the solution?
I mean, the one thing I would say the business is raving about is the Fiori apps. Less time than the existing GUIs. So that's kind of what we're touting for cost savings, which is man hours right now.
Excellent, excellent. But maybe before I go to the what's next question, surprise question, off-script question.
Ooh.
Perfect.
If you think back on that journey on the program, could you give one word in kind of your description of your personal experience with it, with the project?
I'm going to go first.
You start.
I know you have more words than I do. So let me start. And I can't just go with one word, Garrett. To me, it's that teamwork. So I would say badge agnostic, unified front, and own the outcome. And what really turned our program around was almost like a round table, right? SNP, SAP, IBM, Adobe IT, Adobe Finance, all had an equal seat at the table. And that partnership and that unified front that you and I brought, because finance and IT were not in a good place when we started, cascaded down, created that teamwork so people felt they owned the outcome. So it wasn't IT didn't set up the environment, business didn't test. It was the program is in trouble, the program's at risk. How do we all lean in and be successful united?
Yeah. I'll use 2 words and I'll say why they are.
I
So
knew
I'm
you'd
gonna
have
say
more than me.
relentless execution. And the reason I say that is one of the things that Maddie and I had to do was change the culture of how Adobe executes programs in order to instill greater accountability, in order for everyone to step up and say, I own the outcome. If something was IBM's responsibility or SNP's responsibility, it wasn't a hands-off, it's their responsibility, we're going to get it done. It was a we all need to lean in, we all need to step in and make sure we get to the outcome that's needed. Part of that relentless execution was full transparency in where we are. Right? Too often programs like this have the watermelon effect, right? You think everything's green, but you're burning red on the inside. And so we removed that stigma of it's okay to be red, it's okay to say where there's things that are wrong, because only then do you get the level of attention you need to drive outcomes with the velocity that we had.
Yeah. I hear that pronouns matter in both of your answers. It becomes about we and making it happen. So as you look forward here, you got this new platform, a platform to innovate on. Is there anything that's kind of out on the horizon for you that you think's next that you want to do?
Before you answer, if you don't tell me that custom code cleaning is coming, I want to be on the cloud. That is, you better have that in your answer.
That's fair.
Okay.
No, I think that's important. Number 1 for us is archiving, right? We know based upon how S4 functions, we've got to be able to keep it lean. And just with our sheer data size, we are growing exponentially our data profile. And so we have to implement archiving this year in order to make sure that we keep ourselves lean. So I think that's number 1. The other things that we're also looking at are some enhancements around the treasury space, in-house cash. We're looking at some additional enhancements on the FP&A side, additional Fiori apps that we're looking at from the business. So there's a few really quick wins. The great thing about Adobe is we go through planning, just like I'm sure all of y'all do. That is just what we're looking at for the rest of this fiscal year. Right? Then we're going to be looking at our additional enhancements and what's coming next further. Obviously, Rise is on the list. We went to on-prem, as Maddie mentioned. We are looking at how we start to leverage more and more Rise as we go forward in kind of our 5-year trajectory.
Thank you for including that.
Yes.
Anything you'd add?
Just thank you, honestly.
Yeah.
IBM, SNP, SAP for the partnership, and Tim, obviously, thank you.
Of course, thank you.
I was going to as well, thank you guys as well. Congratulations on your success. I think it's just a true testament to each of your guys' leadership and bringing this to life and driving it for Adobe. They're lucky to have you. And I know you guys will do even more great things on this platform going forward. So congratulations.
I wanted to mention, if anyone asks, he might share his tailor with you after the show.
That was the first question I was asked after our Sapphire presentation.
That's right.
Nothing about the program, but about clothes.
Yes.
So,
Excellent.
Thank you guys for coming.
you.